Good afternoon or good morning or good evening, depending on where you are now. Today's event is joined from several parts of the world. We hope that you and your families are staying well and healthy. On behalf of the Pulsar team, we are happy to welcome you to our 15th Pulsar webinar entitled Accounting Education in the Public Sector, International Experiences, and Professional Accounting Organizations Engagement. Today we have a tight agenda and we have a group of renowned experts that are from different countries and will present the topics and country cases for today's event. I would like to remind you that all presentations will be available in our Pulsar website after the event, shortly after the event. I will also like to invite all the participants to post your questions in the Q&A tab in the chat. So at the time you have it, and then we will collect all the questions and for the Q&A session. Without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to Daniel Boyce, Practice Manager of the Governance Global Practice from Europe and Central Asia, for his opening remarks. Dan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jose. Warm greetings to everyone. On behalf of the WorldBank and the Pulsar FinCop and EduCop, the two communities of practice of Pulsar, it's my pleasure to welcome you to our 15th Pulsar virtual workshop, which we also call the Smart Interactive Talks. This Pulsar event is joined by colleagues from Latin America and the Caribbean, FOCAL network, which already has become a good tradition for FOCAL and Pulsar to have these joint sessions. We're promoting the experience sharing and cross collaboration between these two families and between the two regions, really. At previous events managed by EduCop, we had been reaching out and analyzing the demands of the members of the communities of practice in the area of public sector accounting education, and we did address some of them in those workshops, including the presentation of good examples of education platforms and online tools that are available for learning in public sector accounting. So today's topic is the presentation of local and regional approaches to supporting accounting education in the public sector, with quite a number of speakers from different countries and countries that are mostly not in the Latin America, Caribbean, or ECA regions. So the first session will be led by the Confederation of Asian and Pacific Accountants, CAPA, which will give participants the opportunity to take a glance at the PFM reforms and especially accounting education frameworks in the countries in that region. And then in our second session, we'll review different models for public sector accounting education implemented in a number of countries in different regions. In this case, we'll hear from the experiences of South Africa, Philippines, and Vietnam. And in addition, then the team is also working on a follow-up event that will present cases from another group of countries. So for today's event, the key objectives are first to learn from the partners of our own program on the activities being implemented at local and regional levels that especially are aimed to encourage the public accountancy organizations, PAOs, to engage in public sector accounting education, and then to review PSA education models implemented in different countries and regions, and finally then to exchange views on the materials that are presented by the presenters among the different participants of today's event. So again, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate all the speakers, the guests, and then the participants for joining us today. We hope you'll enjoy the event and looking forward to seeing you also in our next and future Pulsar webinars. So we'll go back to you, Jose, and you can kick off the proceedings. Thank you. I don't hear you, Jose.
Thanks so much, Dan.
All right.
We are going to start with the first session. The title of the session is Sharing Regional Initiatives to Support Professional Accounting Organizations to Improve PFM. We have the pleasure of counting with Sumita Shah, the Executive Director from the Confederation of Asian and Pacific Accountants. She will deliver a presentation on the initiatives that are being led by CAPA in these aspects. And we will have, right after this session, questions and answers session that will be led by Natalia Konovalenko, our colleague from Pulsar. So please, Sumita, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Jose. So just as Jose mentioned, I'm an executive director with CAPA, and I've been with CAPA since really late last year, October last year. Prior to that, I used to work for the Institute of Chartered Accountants, England and Wales. And with them, I did quite a lot of work around public sector financial management, because that predominantly is my background. Public sector, accounting and audit and reporting is my background. Just as one aspect, I'm through my own limited company. I work with CAPA part-time, but I've also been working on an EU-funded contract on the implementation of EU practices for accounting, financial reporting and audit in Ukraine. And then that's been quite a major part of my last couple of years until obviously Ukraine, unfortunately, went into the war situation. But that's been a very interesting part of my role in the last couple of years. So let me just, Natalia, could you move on to the next slide? So CAPA's mission is really to enhance the value of the accountancy profession in the Asia Pacific region. And by that, what we do is we contribute and we help the development of the PAOs in our region. And one of our sort of key aspects is to promote ethical values and think about the benefits of the high quality accounting, reporting and assurance, which is what really quite a lot of this workshop is about the high quality accounting and reporting. And CAPA is, we speak out as a voice of the accountancy profession in not just in the Asia Pacific region, and later on I'll explain to you some of the work that we're doing, which is a quite global initiative. So next slide, Natalia. So very briefly, while we are a regional accountancy body and we work closely in partnership with IFAC as well, in the Asia Pacific region, we have our members who are professional accountancy organizations. So we have 31 PAOs across 23 different jurisdictions, and the red on this map shows you where our members sit. And the combined membership of our PAOs is over 2 million. Next slide, Natalia. So our public sector position, we are very much about supporting and encouraging the high quality financial reporting in the public sector that I mentioned. And, we want to make sure that the public sector has robust financial reporting, which is equal to the private sector, which obviously helps in terms of better information for decision making and everything, that we talk about around the public sector. This is part of our aim for the future. Now, we recognize that it is governments that only governments that can make this happen, but we also recognize that PAOs have a significant role to play in this agenda around improving public finance management. And therefore, our work is very much about supporting PAOs in this part of their role. Next slide, Natalia. So over the years, we have you'll need to click the slide. Thanks, Natalia. We've carried out quite a lot of work in the public sector, and we have a number of publications aimed at PAOs and supporting them in their dialogue with governments and other public sector organizations. And I'll talk about 2 or 3 of these in more detail later. We are also working on a new case study for Sri Lanka, and working with the Chartered Accountants Sri Lanka on their journey to support the public sector and the public sector accounting education in particular. Next slide. So the first 2 publications I want to talk about, and these were our very first publications that we published. So the first one is what's called the 8 key elements of PFM success. And we started this work almost a decade ago. The aim of the publication is to really help PAOs understand and have good discussions with the public sector. And so what we try to do is help guide them in the discussions around 8 identified elements. And they're shown on the slide. The first element is really, talking about, well, what is the climate for reform and how can they have the discussion around this? But we talk about governance, what are the sort of legal and institution frameworks that need to be in place, but also what about the behavior and the value systems that need to be put into place? What about the capacity and capabilities? And this is very much what this workshop is about, is the capacity and capability. So there's a number of areas within this publication that we cover. In terms of the next publication, which is about attracting and retaining finance personnel in the public sector. Now, this is always in the public sector. This is always quite difficult. You train people, you get them qualified, and then how do you keep people working within the public sector? So this publication really focuses on the issues involved in ensuring at least that the public sector has the adequate capacity and the appropriate capability in respect to people and everyone who's working in the finance profession. And through this, we also think about the roles of all stakeholders that are important in talking and helping support the public sector. So it's not just the government has to do it on its own, and it's not just about the PAOs that need to do this. There are a number of stakeholders that we talk about within this publication that have a role to play, and some of them are, for example, the WorldBank, which is obviously a key player in providing funding to many jurisdictions as well. So in respect to the sort of academics and people working in the public sector sort of accounting education, so we talk about the roles in their role in educational programs and how they can help to cultivate and how they can help to train public sector finance personnel. And academia can be an independent and credible voice calling for high quality public sector financial management. So what we think many of the stakeholders can do is play a key advocacy role in this area as well. Natalia, next slide, please. So I want to talk just briefly about the latest publication that CAPA produced, which is about PAOs extending their activities into the public sector. And in here, we identify and describe the activities that a PAO could undertake to properly engage in the public sector. And this includes activities that think about the demand for, who are the people that are needed to work within the public sector, and making sure that there is sufficient and appropriately skilled finance personnel to support a good public finance management. And also thinking about, well, how do we create that supply to meet that demand and provide and continue to provide that lifelong support that the public sector needs? So much of this is what, some of the next panel session, the members will talk about in terms of how they support the creation of appropriately skilled finance professionals. Next slide, please, Natalia. So this is the public sector activity wheel, and we developed this model because when we were developing the publication, we were trying to work out, well, what is it, what are the different activities, but also, what is the perspective, whose perspective are we looking at when we're developing, these public sector activities? And we came down to 2 blocks of sort of interested people that, in terms of the PAO. So from the PAO, there's obviously the member perspective. So, for example, I'm a member of several PAOs. So how would my growth be enhanced by my institute, my professional accountancy body actually aligning their activities in the public sector? And it was thinking really about 4 areas: the personal education, personal growth, career opportunities, and strengthening relationships. So from a personal perspective for the student and the qualified accountant, these are the areas that would be most important. But from the PAO perspective, we needed to think about a slightly different perspective and then align that to what the members' needs are, as well as the wider public interest and, wider sort of stakeholder needs. And we then created 4 specific areas around the PAO perspective. So one was creating supply, and I'll talk about creating supply in a bit more detail in a minute, but also around once you're qualified, how can you enhance your skills? And this is really very much around the CPD areas. Then it's about providing opportunities. So the PAO's role in supporting their members and helping them to find opportunities to work in the public sector. And there can be a number of roles that people can do in the public sector, not just as an employee, but they can be sitting on the audit committee and those sort of high level board type roles. And then also we talk about building demand. So how do we build that demand for that supply that we've created? Next slide, Natalia. So in terms of creating supply, and this really will home in on some of the discussions that we'll be having later through the panel as well. So this part of the publication, we start to think about, well, what are the sort of qualifications that might be useful to the public sector? And what we've done in the publication is developed the range of options, but this is really based on what is already out there and existing through the PAOs around the globe. So, for example, one of the options is, what about having the PAOs having a core qualification? And even that discussion, well, we've broken that down into further, because different PAOs have different models. So, for example, the Institute of Chartered Accountants England and Wales, they offer their existing qualification to the public sector. And the reason that they offer their existing qualification is their view is that that qualification meets the needs of the public sector. And if you think about it, the UK government accounting, so central government accounting, local government accounting, is based very much on IFRSs rather than the IPSASs. And then the public sector audit is very much based around the international auditing standards. So ICAW's view is that existing qualification will then cover the majority of the needs of both the preparers of accounts and also the auditors of accounts as well. So that's one specific model. Second model that we found in our research was a number of PAOs have used their existing qualification, but developed a specific public sector module so that their students, those who want to work in the public sector, can then opt for the public sector module. So, for example, the Institute of Cost Management Accountants Bangladesh has developed a public sector module as part of their main qualification. The Institute of Chartered Accountants Pakistan has recently also done the same. And also the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ireland have developed a specific public sector module. The third option within the core qualification is then to develop a very specific public sector qualification. And there are models already in place. You will have heard of the Chartered Institute of Public Finance Accountancy, which is the main international accountancy body that offers a public finance qualification itself. But also in more recent years, they have been working with Chartered Accountants Sri Lanka to develop a public sector specific qualification in Sri Lanka. And the case study, one of the case studies that I'm currently working on with Capa, which will be published in the next couple of months, it very much focuses on this CA Sri Lanka work around the public sector and its organizational arrangements. And finally, there is the Pakistan Institute of Public Finance Accountancy have also developed a very specific public sector qualification. And what is very unique about PIPFA is that actually in the past, they were an accounting technician organization, but because many of their accounting technicians worked in the public sector, they have then moved over and changed their name and had a reorganization and are now called PIPFA. So some of the PAOs that we work with had other education programs. So there are specific certificate programs for a number of things, and examples that CPA Canada have a certificate program which their members can do in addition to their existing qualification. And this is based around those people who are in senior roles within the public sector. So they might be finance directors or CFOs working in this Canadian government. And this one's called a Senior Executive Advanced Finance and Accounting Program. The Institute of Chartered Accountants India has developed a very specific certificate course on public finance and government accounting. And this is because they support the public sector, specifically in local government within India. And so a lot of their work has been done around supporting their members working within the public sector. Those PAOs and their members who are working in governments around the world, and many governments are implementing IPSASs. And so organizations like CFRR and ACCA have developed a very specific IPSAS certificate as well, which is aimed at supporting those members who are working in financial reporting and accounting, and specifically because they're implementing IPSASs within their jurisdiction. So that's a range of options. There's a lot more detail in the publication itself. Now, when a PAO decides what they need to do and what options they might want to offer, well, this will really depend on the existing qualifications, skills, and competencies within the government and their jurisdiction. So one of the things that we suggest within the publication is really to think about doing some sort of needs analysis with your government to identify, what is already in place, what skills and competencies are already in place, and therefore what are the gaps, depending on what the government needs going forward. And this will obviously, everything that a PAO will do in terms of developing qualifications, whether it's a public sector module or certificate programs or a very specific public sector qualification, those decisions will naturally depend on the level of investment required and whether they will be able to get funding, enough income coming in to justify whichever option that they have chosen. So I've run through that very quickly in terms of creating supply, but there are examples that, within the publication, and there's more detail about the different types of qualification within the publication as well. Now, can we just skip to the next slide, Natalia? So I want to just quickly talk about two other publications. They're not necessarily public sector, but they are wider publications around the model that PAOs have in terms of the different, their different aspects of their organization itself. Now, recently we published the Professional Qualification Guide, and this really talks about the features for designing and administering an effective professional qualification program. And this can be applied to both professional accountants, and by professional accountants, we mean chartered accountants or the CPAs, different jurisdictions call them different things, but they're the ones who might then go on to do audit, for example. And then this can also be applied to accounting technicians. And I know that there are people going to be speaking about accounting technicians later on in a bit more detail. CAPA has also carried out some work around accounting technicians as well. And we have two publications that we've, through which we've explored why accounting technicians are an important component of the accountancy profession, and especially in developing countries, developing jurisdictions where there might not be very many qualified accountants within government anyway. And therefore, to start with a chartered accountancy qualification may be too high a bar to set. And you may need to think about, whether we start at a different level, a foundational level, to bring in a different type of accountant who can then work their way up through maybe some pathways to becoming a chartered accountant, for example. So our publications also think about the key features and the operational arrangements and programs, and then the opportunities that exist for the existing PAOs and their members around having accounting technicians. So in respect of accounting technicians, there are around the world some organizations who only deal with and have qualifications for accounting technicians. And then there are PAOs that have the chartered accountancy qualification, but will also have a foundation level, which is either the accounting technician or they may call it something else, but the curriculum and the definitions are very similar. Now, CAPA, because we've been working in this area for a number of years, looking at the role of accounting technicians, we are currently leading a project which is looking at how can we achieve wider recognition for the accounting technician, because whilst chartered accountants and CPAs are recognized, it's not clear that the accounting technician cohort is recognized globally in all jurisdictions. So there's a lot more work that needs to be done in terms of raising the profile for accounting technicians and the value that they actually bring to the accountancy supply chain, and also to the work that accountants traditionally do as well. I'll just also talk a little bit, next slide, Natalia. So when we talk about accounting technicians. Now, traditionally, the accountancy qualifications have been for those with university degrees, and therefore there were very limited opportunities for those who don't have a university degree to go on to do some sort of accountancy qualification. So in our professional qualification guide that I mentioned a couple of slides in the last slide, this model that we've got in there, the qualification ladder, really talks about how a PAO can open up opportunities to all and widen the access to the profession. So they would be often then supporting social mobility and helping to narrow the gender equality gap. So the qualification ladder opens up entry and exit routes and then minimizes barriers to qualifications and therefore minimizes the barriers to the actual accountancy profession. It allows people, for example, at a school leaver level to get into the profession and have some sort of pathway to move up through their career and, you know, go on to become sort of aspiring chartered accountants and maybe, you know, even go further. This very much also supports the UN Sustainability Development Goals as well. And just for information as well, I started off as an accounting technician myself many years ago in my profession. And then I moved on to do CFRR because the accounting technician qualification enabled me to do that. And also I moved on to do the ICAW qualification in later years. So the accounting technician qualification opened up opportunities for me that I may never have had because I didn't go to university. Last slide, Natalia. So in terms of our key messages, we're very much about improving PFM because this is very much in the spotlight. The public is demanding increased transparency and accountability, and we also need robust governance and frameworks, including accounting and auditing standards, and also the reporting needs to be very robust as well. And there are many stakeholders that have a role to play in this. And as CARPA, we are here to advocate for PAOs. We're here to inspire and support them. But we also think that the PAOs can help to influence that demand and provide that supply. But also the universities and the academics can assist with both the demand and the supply. And the people aspect is very much crucial around public sector financial management. So not only is it important to adopt the international standards, but we need to have the right quantity and the right quality of people with the right skills to enable us to produce those financial accounts and do the reporting. And in all of this, the universities also have a very key role to play as well. So thank you very much. I'll stop there. My final slide does have a link to our website. And so to see all the publications that I've talked about, please do link on that website. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you very much, Sumita, for a very interesting presentation. And we are opening up a floor for questions to Sumita in case someone has questions. Also, alternatively, you can put your questions into Q&A section. And in case we do not have time to answer them within our section, we will answer them later on and will forward responses to attendees. So if anyone has questions, please raise your hand or put the question into a questions section.
So far, no questions in the Q&A session. So we can advance with the, we have one question, Cesar Duro from Argentina. César, would you like to post a question in the chat? César, ¿quieres indicar la pregunta en el chat? Or alternatively, Irma, I don't know if we can promote him to panelists to make the question live. That would also work.
No sé si me escuchan.
Te escuchamos perfecto, César. We hear you perfectly, and I can translate the question. Por favor, adelante, César.
Dos cuestiones. La primera es la opinión si el tema de contabilidad gubernamental debe ser temática independiente de contabilidad general o debe formar parte de ella. Y la segunda cuestión es cuál es la visión que pueden tener respecto de la enseñanza de las materias vinculadas a la contabilidad gubernamental en América Latina específicamente o en otros países. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, César. I will try to translate. The first part of the question is what's your opinion regarding the thematic of governmental accounting? Is this should this be conceived as a part of the general accounting, or should it be a separate or more separate knowledge concept or knowledge base? And the second, it's how is your vision on the public sector accounting teaching aspect or education resources for this to happen? So please, we would like to hear from you, Sumita.
Okay, these are very broad questions, so I will try to answer them. In terms of the first question, it really depends on what the government, the decision has to rest with the government about whether they do just general sort of government accounting or whether they do specific, public sector. And I'm assuming he means around, do we use IFRSs or do we use IPSAS? And I don't think, but if I'm assuming that was the gist of the question, then really it's a matter for the government to decide what they need to do. We chose that route in the UK because the UK decided they wanted to replicate what was happening in the private sector as well, and therefore it could be run side by side. But many and most jurisdictions are opting to use IPSAS's public sector accounting because they haven't even in the past, moved on to accruals accounting before. So IPSAS allows them to move from, budgeted sort of cash-based accounts to budgeted accounting and then to accruals accounting. So I'm hoping I've answered that question correctly, but I'm not sure if I have, depending on the interpretation of that.
No, thanks, Sumita, and yes, it's a broad question, and it's hard to split in several small questions to get the full picture, right? We have another question from Alfred on the very interesting models that were presented, and the question is, any thoughts on future trends? Will there be convergence of these models? And if so, which model could prevail?
What models is he talking about? Is that to do with the chartered accountants and accounting technicians?
I interpret that. Alfred maybe can clarify in the question if needed, but my take would be that exactly your interpretation. Models of education.
Models of education. So again, I'm going to assume that we're talking about, because I've been talking about the different qualifications. I think that there will still be, sorry, there will.
We will try to share the slide because I think it's going to.
This one, I think. Is it a qualification ladder? Irma, can you please promote Alfred to the panelists so that we could ask what model Alfred was talking about?
Done.
Alfred, please go ahead.
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Yes, thank you. Look, I just thought it was interesting that you talked about some models where, we just offer the education for everyone, and that's useful because the standards are the same, and in some cases it's specialized courses for senior managers. So there's different models that have been adopted, and of course they depend on the accounting environment and various factors. But I'm just, any thoughts on whether, one model or several models will prevail, and whether you see a general trend over the years, or expectation of future trends, if only one model or a few models prevailing? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So Natalia, it's the slide about the creating supply. So the different models, again, it goes back to the points towards the bottom of the slide, which is really about, well, what is it that's needed in that jurisdiction? And therefore the PAO would be trying to develop a qualification or use the existing qualification, really depending on the needs of the government. If we're staying, sticking to the public sector accounting, for example, and the public sector education framework, then it would depend on the needs, and also it will depend on the ability of the PAO itself in terms of its own strategy and how it sees itself going forward. So for example, I'll give you the example of ICAW. They have a number of members working within the public sector, but when we did the analysis at the time I was working at ICAW, when we did the analysis of the differences in the accounting within the private sector and the public sector, actually 80% was the same, and therefore there wasn't a need to develop a completely new public sector qualification. But when you start then talking about somewhere like Sri Lanka, where the accounting is very different in their public sector, and they were still in the past still doing cash accounting, so they didn't have IFRSs in place, and their model of accounting within the government was very different. So really, it's not that the models will converge. It will really depend on what is already in place within the government, and then what it is that they need. And really, it will depend on having that dialogue with the government ministers, and if you have an accountancy sort of function within the government itself, you need to have that dialogue directly with them. So in terms of future trends, if I was to really just think about the future, and knowing how I've worked in different regions when I was at ICAW, so looked at different things around the world globally, not just the Asia Pacific. It really very much depends on the maturity of the government departments themselves, and the maturity of their own accounting systems will determine what sort of qualifications are needed. So it's not really answered your question about future trends, because I don't think we can really, sort of have a crystal ball to think about that, because it will depend on the government needs.
Thanks so much, Sumita. This was a very interesting session, and it sets the stage for our next session. Of course, all the participants can post additional questions if there's something that wasn't asked right now, and we can merge it with the following Q&A session. So we're gonna thank you very much, Sumita. We are going to transition to the next session, which is public sector accounting education models implemented in South Africa, Philippines, and Vietnam. We will start with the first case, the case of South Africa, and we have Trudy Paul from the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, SAICA. She's the project director, Learning and Development of Accounting Technicians, South Africa. So Trudy, the floor is yours.
Jose, thank you. Greetings, everyone from South Africa. I'm hoping you can all hear me clearly.
Perfect.
Greetings from, I'm glad to say, a sunny South Africa. We've been having European weather for quite a few days now, but today I'm pleased to say that we have sunshine and blue skies. I'm from the Institute of Chartered Accountants in South Africa. My name is Trudy Paul, and the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, or SAICA as it's commonly known in the country, is based in Johannesburg. I'm speaking to you today, though, from a little town about 350 kilometers outside of Johannesburg, a little town called Sabi, which is surrounded by one of the world's largest man-made forests. It's beautiful, picturesque little town, clean air, mountain springs, wildlife all around. It really is a wonderful place to be in. And the upside of the pandemic is that I now get to work remotely from here instead of at our offices back in Johannesburg. But before I start to sound like the local tour guide, let me begin my presentation by saying thank you to all of you for allowing me the opportunity to share our experiences. I'm going to be taking you through the work that we have been doing in public sector accounting in the last 12 years. I'm also going to take you through how our organization has worked closely with the different government departments to build capacity at entry level right up through to chartered accountant level within the public sector. If you'll give me a moment, I'm just going to share my screen. I'm hoping you can all see that.
Everything fine. We can see it perfectly.
Great, thank you, Jose. So in the short space of time that we have today, I'm hoping to run through at a fairly high level with you an introduction to the public sector, what the public sector in South Africa looks like, and also an overview of the education system in South Africa. The partnership between SAICA and the different government departments, how accounting technicians work within government, and then key to what we do is the development of a competency framework for public sector accounting technicians, qualifications which were developed from this competency framework, accreditation, how education providers and employers deliver the qualifications and provide directed work experience, what successes we've had, and what lessons we've learned along the way. So the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants has 3 designations: the Chartered Accountant, the Associate General Accountant, and the Accounting Technicians. My presentation today is going to be focused on the Accounting Technicians. SAICA is one of the leading accounting institutions in the world. And apart from offering these 3 designations, which are all underpinned by qualifications in the finance and accounting environment, SAICA has also partnered with the public sector for an extended period of time to build capacity at entry level through to an advanced level in accounting and finance. The South African public sector, I thought it might be useful just to take you through what the public sector looks like. Now, our public sector has gone through many changes, the most significant of which happened in 1994, when the country transitioned from the apartheid era into a more democratic country. At the same time, equally significant changes took place within the public sector. Our public sector had to gear up to start supporting a far more diverse population. And to that end, the mandate broadened. Economic growth, good management and use of the country's resources, equal education, healthcare, infrastructure development, and equal access to housing. Now, the challenges in the country relating to education, safety, and infrastructure development, to name but a few, still continue. But education has been a core focus area. And the public sector decided to embrace this as a core focus area and embark on an initiative to professionalize the public sector. And that is how the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants became involved with government. Now, within the South African government, there are three spheres: national government, which includes treasury, departments like agriculture and defense. We then have provincial governments, and there are 9 provinces in the country and a provincial government heading up and governing each of these 9 provinces. At provincial level, we also have departments like roads and transport, police services and housing. We then have local government, which are the municipalities, and there are 278 municipalities spread across the country. Now, each of these spheres of government have established an accounting and finance division that is structured in a standard way across all of these divisions. So there are 3 main pillars or disciplines that exist within each of the government spheres. And at a very high level, it's supply chain, financial accounting, and management accounting. Within those disciplines, there are then levels of work, starting with the accounts clerk at your very entry level and ending with your senior accountant at the top level. In between, you have junior accountant, state accountant, and a general accountant. Now, the public sector created these disciplines and these levels of work to build capacity at individual level and also at government level. The structures, which initially were not standardized, have recently been standardized across all spheres by the DPSA, which is the Department of Public Service Administration, and the National Treasury. So the individual pillars for each area of specialization, as I mentioned, supply chain, financial accounting, and management accounting. The chartered accountants, though, operate at all levels, but for the accounting technicians, the focus is at the financial accounting and at the management accounting level. The different levels, starting at A and ending at E, the accounting technicians focus on the accounts clerk, the junior accountant, and up to the state accountant. Competencies have been outlined and detailed per specialization and per level in a document that National Treasury calls a technical competency dictionary. Following that, job standards and role profiles were developed, and these were linked to the competencies in the technical competency dictionary. What SAICA then did was to develop a competency framework for accounting technicians. And this competency framework addressed the need for skills development in financial accounting and management accounting, at levels 1 to 3. So your accounts clerk, your junior accountant, and the state accountant. Now, the South African education system plays a key role in the development of qualifications and any other learning initiatives that we embark on. So the South African education system, together with the needs for accounting in the public sector, were two of the big influences on the development of the competency framework and also the development of the qualifications thereafter. So within the South African education system resides something called the National Qualifications Framework. The NQF is a single national integrated framework for learning, and qualifications and skills programs are registered on the NQF and are pitched at levels 1 to 10. 1 being your adult basic education and 10 being your doctorate. The South African Qualifications Authority, which is SAQA, is the custodian of the NQF. They also oversee the registration of qualifications, and they liaise and collaborate with 3 quality councils that exist in the country. The first is the Quality Council for Higher Education. They specialize and govern qualifications and learning programs at levels 5 to 10 on the NQF. We then have the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations, which deals with further education and training. And these are qualifications at levels 3 to 8 on the NQF. You'll notice there is overlap between the different quality councils. And I must tell you that this has led to quite a few very controversial and interesting discussions and debates. The third quality council we have is Umalusi, and this is the Quality Council for Basic Education. They govern NQF levels 1 to 4, and this is basically your schooling system within the country. So the competency framework that we developed for public sector accountants describes the professional competencies, which are the values and attitudes, enabling competencies, and technical competencies that a public sector accounting technician must have at the point of entry into the profession. It provides a reference point for existing public sector accounting technicians, prospective accounting technicians, employers, and the general public. It provides a clear understanding of what a public sector accounting technician is able to proficiently do as they embark upon their careers. The competency framework is aligned to the National Treasury Technical Competency Dictionary for roles at levels A to C. The competency framework then also provided the base on which the qualifications and the work experience programs for entry to mid-level public sector accountants are developed and delivered. The fundamental principles guiding the development of the competency framework are operational performance, ethical behavior and management, and professional competence. So the framework is split into 3 main components. The first, professional values and attitudes, and these cover ethics, lifelong learning, and professionalism. We also then have the enabling competencies, which are communication, decision-making, digital acumen, meeting customer needs, personal management, working within a team, and leading a team. And then we have technical competencies that have been tailored for the public sector. Now, when Sumita was talking a little earlier on, there was a question about whether you have a specific qualification for public sector accountants or you have a generic qualification. In South Africa, we've developed sort of a hybrid of the two. So we've established what competencies are necessary for all accountants. whether they work in the public sector or in the private sector, or if they work in national and provincial government, or if they work in local government. And we found that the competencies that were common to all accountants were in the region of about 60% of the competencies within our competency framework. So we tailored and customized only 40% of the competencies and made them specific to private sector, public sector, and then often more specific to provincial, national government, and then also to local government. So in terms of the core technical competencies that we identified, digitization came out very strongly, the need for computerized accounting, cloud accounting to assist in the accounting process, recording and processing financial transactions. Bearing in mind these are entry-level qualifications into the profession, we have open access for these accounting qualifications. So someone who has not had an opportunity to study accounting in school, or they didn't make the entry into university for accounting, they could register for the public sector accounting technician qualifications with no experience. If necessary, a bridging program could be conducted, but these qualifications do start at entry level. You will notice from some of the competencies I'm going through now, recording and processing financial transactions, preparing and recording sales and revenue transactions. These are very entry-level accounting functions. Preparing and recording purchases and payments, managing debtors, petty cash, recons, trial balance, drafting and analysis and interpretation of financial statements. That's as we start to move to the higher levels within accounting. Accounting for property, plant, equipment, payrolls and taxes, managing cash, assets and inventory, budgeting and costing, VAT, business and personal tax, and internal controls. This is the high level of all of the technical competencies that are covered within the public sector for accounting technicians. The competency framework then led us to the development of 3 levels of public sector accounting technician qualifications. These levels, 3, 4, and 5, are indicative of what resides on the education system national qualification framework. Each of these qualifications are a year long, and they form part of a credit system that falls on the NQF. So each of these qualifications is 120 credits. So we start at entry level, as I alluded to, with the very basics, the introduction to accounting, workplace skills, teaching people how to enter the world of work for the first time, working with computers, professional ethics. It is a core and key component of all qualifications, and it's a compulsory module. Students cannot graduate from this qualification without completing professional ethics. We also start with budgeting and reporting at the entry level, and then making and recording payments, recording revenue and receipts. So that forms the entry level open access qualification. The way the qualification is structured is each one of these units of learning has an individual assessment attached to it, and students complete a unit of learning, they take the assessment, and they move on to the next unit of learning. They graduate from the level of the qualification only once they've completed and been assessed and passed all of the relevant units of learning. Now, if you look at the next level, the Further Education and Training Public Sector Certificate, you will see there is a progression pathway from the level 3 to the level 4 to the level 5, where we start building on the skills acquired in the level 3 and expanding on them in the level 4 and the level 5. This presentation will be shared after today's workshop, so I won't take you through all of the detail, but feel free to go through it at your own leisure. The students that complete the qualification have to demonstrate their ability to apply knowledge and skills acquired over the duration of their training. The assessments are all competency-based, and students are assessed through a range of simulations, case studies, and computer-based assessments. The assessment strategy that dictates how assessment is conducted uses a range of both formative and summative assessments. Formative assessments built into the teaching and learning, and summative assessments at the end of each of the units of learning. Now, once students have completed their qualification and have been successfully assessed, they can become designated members of CICA holding the Public Sector Accounting Technician designation. The route to becoming a member is to complete the 3 levels of the qualification, to then take an entrance exam called the Test of Professional Competence, and thereafter, on completing that Test of Professional Competence successfully, students will be awarded the Public Sector Accounting Technician designation. In addition to the academic component and the entrance exam, students also have to complete 12 months of directed work experience. The directed work experience enables them to apply the competencies that they've acquired while studying the qualification. There is also a route to membership for students who have not studied with CICA for the accounting technician qualifications. This is an RPL route where we recognize students that have studied through other institutions and who have gained work experience through an undirected route than that which CICA offers. Accreditation. In order for organizations to offer the accounting technician qualifications, they have to be accredited. CICA is registered with SAQA, the South African Qualifications Authority, as a professional body, and is also a quality assurance partner to the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations. This allows us, through delegation of authority, to accredit education providers to deliver the accounting technician qualifications, and to accredit employers to offer directed work experience. Prospective training providers and employers are evaluated against the resources they have in place, the systems they have in place, and expertise to support and guide students. We also require their commitment to conduct learning delivery, to conduct assessment, and to provide work experience opportunities in an environment that is conducive to learning. Quality assurance process. Once training providers, education providers, and employers have been accredited, we go through a fairly rigorous quality assurance process, which calls for self-assessment on an annual basis, verification site visits, which are conducted by a CICA team, monitoring and evaluation of the teaching, learning, and work experience, assessment spot checks, verification of student results, and engagement and upskilling sessions, which are offered by the Institute. So over the years, through all of the work that we've done, all of the engagements we've had, while the work is by no means complete, we've been quite pleased to have had some successes along the way. We've trained over 6,000 students in the public sector. At last count in 2020, in excess of 6,000 students had completed studies in the public sector accounting technician qualifications, either for provincial and national government or for local government. We've collaborated with a large number of funders to offer these qualifications. Government right at the top of that list for us, we've partnered with National Treasury to develop the qualifications, to review the qualifications, and to roll them out to employees within the public sector. Monitoring and evaluation, we've received positive feedback from employers, from students, from faculty, from funders on the changes that they've seen in the performance of their employees after they've attended these qualifications. The qualifications fit for purpose after several iterations, I might add. When we first developed the qualifications in 2008, the qualifications were developed. When I joined SAICA in 2012, we reviewed the qualifications, and we now have qualifications that are fit for purpose. They're aligned to the technical competency dictionary, and they are being successfully delivered. Now, delivery models vary from one provider to the next. There are hybrid models, some face-to-face, some distance learning, some e-learning, and then some blended hybrid models of learning where students study these qualifications. Employers, students in progress and graduates are successfully employed at provincial and national government departments at the moment. And along with the successes, we've learned quite a few lessons along the way. One of the key lessons for me in developing these qualifications was to broaden the consultation with stakeholder groups. I found the more we engaged, the more valuable feedback we got, and the easier it was for us to make qualifications truly fit for purpose. Experiential learning, the case studies, the simulations, apart from engaging the learner more and increasing the learning retention, it produced a student or graduate that was far more ready to enter the workplace. Never leave a student behind. This goes to the delivery models. We worked very closely with education providers and with employers to look at how we could employ different methodologies and different learning strategies to allow students to learn at different paces. Over-reliance on summative assessment. I find that in general, education providers and professional bodies do have an over-reliance on summative assessment. But I found that there is equal value, if not more value, to be gained from formative assessment, peer evaluation, face-to-face learning, and doing continuous assessment along the way, and then using both summative and formative assessment to deem a student competent in the qualification that they've studied. And finally, continuous professional development. I cannot emphasize enough how important it has been for us to encourage our students not to stop learning and to engage in the right amount and the right quality of learning initiatives to make sure that their skills are current and relevant and to keep on learning. I think I'm going to stop there and then take any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Trudy. We will take questions at the end of the presentations. Thanks so much for such an interesting presentation and with all these features that we have heard. Now we're gonna hear the case of the Philippines, and we have Dr. Noe Quiñanola. He's a chairman for the Philippine Professional Regulatory Board of Accountancy. Dr. Quiñanola, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Jose. So I will just share my screen first. Okay, I think it's visible now, right?
Yes, perfectly visible.
Okay. Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are in the world. You know, I understand that this is global, so we don't have exactly one time that we are in. So anyway, to start with, yes, as what Jose was saying earlier, I am the chairman of the Professional Regulatory Board of Accountancy in the Philippines. Accountancy practice in the Philippines is regulated by an agency in the government called Professional Regulation Commission. The Board of Accountancy is under the Professional Regulation Commission, and the Board of Accountancy regulates the accountancy profession in particular. There are other boards in the Professional Regulation Commission also regulating other professions. And I'm very pleased to announce or to let you know, guys, that the accountancy profession in the Philippines will be 100 years. We will be celebrating our centennial year or centennial anniversary, so to speak, on March 17, 2023. So this time, we are on our centenary towards the centennial celebration. So that's quite a milestone to celebrate, being 100 years. Okay. Now, as I was hearing the presentation earlier on public sector accounting, I had the understanding that the focus was on accountants serving the government, if that's the case. But in my presentation, public sector accounting is actually public sector means that these are actually certified public accountants engaged in the practice of public accountancy. And when we say public accountancy, these are certified public accountants offering external audit services to companies, and then they issue audit reports related to the financial statements of the company. Although, of course, I will be touch basing on government service as well. So the presentation outline would be the accountancy education in the Philippines, the licensure examination for certified public accountants, accountancy fields of practice, accreditation of CPAs in public practice, and professional organization involvement. So let me start with accountancy education in the Philippines. When one would like to become a certified public accountant, then the individual has to undergo the bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Science in Accountancy. The next slide will actually present what would be the course content of the Bachelor of Science in Accountancy program. Now, the Bachelor of Science in Accountancy is being offered in tertiary schools, meaning to say these are schools, these are collegiate schools, and these are taken by students after completing senior high school. Being such, it is regulated or supervised by the Commission on Higher Education, also a branch of the government. The Board of Accountancy coordinates with the Commission on Higher Education with regards to the Bachelor of Science in Accountancy program, because it has a direct bearing on the quality of certified public accountants who are going to enter the profession at some later time. So the Board of Accountancy coordinates with the Commission on Higher Education in the offering of Bachelor of Science in Accountancy, making sure that what is needed by the industry is actually included in the curriculum that is being considered or offered in collegiate schools. So the program, BS Accountancy, is designed to support aspiring professional accountants to develop the appropriate entry-level technical competence professional skills, values, ethics, and attitudes to successfully complete their studies, pass their professional certification assessment examination, and the practical experience period. It is composed of a minimum of 173 units, including the required general education curriculum, and covers all major areas required by the profession, such as number 1, accounting, finance, and related knowledge; number 2, organizational and business knowledge; and number 3, information technology, knowledge, and competencies. So this is actually the breakdown of the 173 units in the BS Accountancy program. Of course, the first 3 are basic courses, and these are practically offered in any program or any college program in the Philippines. The next 3, number 4, 5, and 6, is specific to accountancy. So we have common business and management education courses, core accounting education courses, cognates, major, and professional courses. So once they graduate from the BS Accountancy program, they would be eligible to take the licensure examination for certified public accountants. The BS Accountancy program is designed to equip the students with skills at the entry level, but at that point, he or she is considered a generalist. There is no specific area of expertise that he or she had chosen yet. So after graduating from the BS Accountancy program, the student will now be eligible to take the licensure examination for certified public accountants, of which when they pass the examination, they will be given the title Certified Public Accountants. A while ago, Subita and also the one from South Africa shared about accounting technician. Accounting technicians actually are not covered or are not regulated by the Professional Regulation Commission, but there is also a body here in the Philippines giving examination for accounting technicians. So we will concentrate on certified public accountants. So the licensure examination for certified public accountants cover the following topics. As I said, it is geared towards making the candidate a generalist. So number 1 is financial accounting and reporting. Number 2, advanced financial accounting and reporting. Number 3 is auditing. This involves both theory and problems. Number 4 is management services. This is related to managerial accounting, financial management, and economic concepts. Number 5, regulatory framework for business transactions, involves various laws and regulations that affects business. And then number 6 is taxation. So these are the 6 subjects that are covered by the licensure examination for certified public accountants. Of course, when they pass the exam, then they will actually be eligible to practice accountancy. And the fields of practice of accountancy in the Philippines is composed of the following. Number 1, public practice. This is when the individual involved himself in the audit or offering external audit service to firms or entities who would like their financial statements be examined, such that the public practitioner can issue an audit report regarding the fairness of the presentation of the financial statements. Number 2 is education or the academe. In this particular area of practice, the individual is getting into teaching. Teaching accounting is a field of practice for certified public accountants. In fact, in the Philippines, only certified public accountants are allowed to teach accounting subjects in college. Another field of practice is commerce and industry. In commerce and industry, this is where a CPA is employed and in a particular business organization, business enterprise, or a business entity as its accountant, controller, bookkeeper, analyst, financial analyst, budget manager. So they are actually just serving one company at any point in time, as compared to public practitioners, wherein they can examine or audit financial statements of various companies. And then, of course, the fourth area or field of practice for certified public accountants in the Philippines is in government service. And this is when a certified public accountant enters government as accountant or in any other capacity related to accounting, like state auditor, and so on. So at this point, okay, once they pass the certified public accountant licensure examination, then they will be made to choose which practice area they would like to go to. And based on the practice area that they would to go to, then they will actually study further on how to improve their crafts related to that specific practice field. And that is actually where CPD or continuing professional development comes in. So accreditation of CPAs in public practice. When a CPA wants to engage in public practice, passing the board examination is not enough. He or she has to be accredited. Accredited meaning to say he has to be examined again or evaluated again, whether he possesses the qualifications or the competencies of a CPA who will be offering himself to the public in auditing financial statements. And in a nutshell, these are the requirements or the prerequisites for accreditation of CPAs who wants to enter into public practice or who wants to offer external audit services. Number one, he must have at least 3 years of minimum or meaningful experience in public practice. So therefore, chances are he must have been employed by an auditing firm. Number two, completion of 120 CPD credits. Okay, this is equivalent to 40 credit units per year. Number three is compliance to QAR or Quality Assurance Review requirement, because we have to examine their competency regarding quality of output that they can actually give as far as audit of financial statement is concerned. Accreditation is not permanent because they have to apply for renewal of accreditation every 3 years, meaning to say on a triennial basis. So accreditation will expire after 3 years and they have to reapply for accreditation with the same requirements. Okay, completion of 120 CPD credit units and also compliance with QAR or Quality Assurance Review, wherein their financial statements, the financial statements and working papers of the companies that they have audited for the last 3 years will be assessed whether it meets the minimum requirements of ISQM. So professional organization involvement. Professional organization for certified public accountants actually is very strong in the Philippines. We have the Philippine Institute of Certified Public Accountants, which is actually the main arm. It encompasses all the CPAs wherever practice area they belong to. So aside from the Philippine Institute of Certified Public Accountants, we also have the ACPAPP, or the Association of Certified Public Accountants in Public Practice, wherein the membership is actually limited to those who are offering external audit services to the public. We have the NACPAE, or the National Association of Certified Public Accountants in Education, so that the teachers, okay, the CPAs in the academe also have their own group, so that they can actually discuss, they can actually have some seminars and conferences which are specific to accounting education. And then we have the Government Association for Certified Public Accountants, and this association is composed of certified public accountants who are employed with the government. And the Association of Certified Accountants in Commerce and Industry, or the ACPAC, are the members of which are those employed in private entities or private business organization. So all in all, we have specific professional organization per practice area, but we have one general organization, general professional organization, which integrates all the CPAs wherever practice area he or she belongs to, and that is the Philippine Institute of Certified Public Accountants. The various organizations, the various professional organizations, make sure that the CPD, or the continuing professional development needs of its members, are attended to, so that on a continuing basis, the certified public accountants in the Philippines are undergoing training. They're actually attending seminar in order to keep abreast of what is the latest trend in the practice. And I think that is the last slide. So I would like to thank everyone for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Quiñanole. Very interesting indeed, and it's nice to see the contrast, some contrast at different levels on some of the cases presented so far. We will hear the last case for today, which is the case of Vietnam, and we have Dr. Pham Quang Thu. He's the head of Public Sector Accounting Division in the School of Accounting from the University of Economics, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. Dr. Hu, can you hear us? Perfect. Yes. The floor is yours.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for your invitation. First of all, I would like to give many thanks to allow me to be attend the workshop to share some information about the public sector's education program in my universities in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. So I will take some seconds for share screen. Yeah, is this okay for you?
Yes, perfect. We are seeing it clearly.
Yeah. So thank you so much. So today I would like to present the PS accounting education about the Vietnamese case, and especially in my university in Vietnam, and in one city, a big city in Vietnam is Ho Chi Minh City. I am a head of Public Sector Accounting Division in University of Economics, Ho Chi Minh City. And today, I would like to present the specific case-specific program that we already conducted from nearly 10 years, nearly 10 years ago. So the outline of my presentations today, I have 5 sections. The first one, the reason or the base that we can build up the program of the PSA accounting training to the student in my university, our university. The next one, give some overall information about the PSA program of our uni. And I would like to present the system of BS training program in our university in 3 parts. The first one, input and how we can process, and the last one, the output of the program. So that the main outline for my presentation today. So the first one, the reasons and places for building up the PS program in our university. The first one, we have the law on education and the law on higher education of from National Assembly. They set the rule and regulation and key point for set or establish a new program in each university in Vietnam. The next one, the direction of the dean and the principal of our university. We set the international oriented advanced program for 6 or 7 years ago. And the next one, we get the decision of our university party committees about the overall revising for own curriculum in our universities. And next one, beside the law on higher education, we already get the circular from the Ministry of Education and Training about the higher education learning outcome and education program. So we should base for above things to establish the program. And actually, we already focus about the special status with the Vietnamese condition or criteria and the very particular circumstances and specific cases in Vietnam. So there are 5 reasons, and we base on that to create the PAs program in our university in Ho Chi Minh City as well. The next one, I give you some overall image about the PAs program. The first one, the program name of this the training is the public accounting or public sector accounting. The key point is here in Vietnam, some students, some researchers, some lecturers maybe get some misunderstanding about the public accounting with public sector accounting, because the public accounting, for example, CPA, Certified Public Accounting, is used for the private accounting as well. So the name is public accounting, maybe get confusion to the audience, to the learner, or to the readers. The next one, the levels we conduct in this program is for undergraduate students. And the code is the gift by the Ministry of Education and Training. And the timeline for academic duration of training is 3 years and a half. 3 years and a half, or 3 years and 8 months. And total credit the students should learn in total program is with 120 credits for all and 7 or 8 semesters in this program. And now I would like to focus on the system, the overall systems of the PSA accounting program in our university. The first one, input, and it means that the enrollment of admission from the student in in my university. First one, student must pass the National High School Exit Examination that will take place and conduct maybe from the July for each year. So in Vietnam, that will happen in maybe one month later, right? The next one, student must register the official document to the university they want to get in. And last one, student must complete all procedures for entrance after get the acceptance from admission of the university. So there is three above things is the condition for the pupil from the high school to enroll the university in our university, in our country, and the same for our university. And when they get in, they will choose the majors for their learning. For example, public sector accounting. And the next one, I focus about the process of PFA education content. I also I focus about the 6 points here. The first one, learning outcomes. The next one, how many blocks information that the student learn when they join to BA's education. Number 3, academic knowledge of BA. We focus about the academic knowledge, special knowledge, special things. And number 4, the personnel for PS program in our university. Is number 5, the professional organization involved in our program. And the last one is material we use. So it's here. I would like to describe the PAO, this program learning outcome for PSA program. And you can see the slide. We have the 3 parts of them. The first one, knowledge. The next one, skill. And the last one, autonomy and responsibility. So the first one about the knowledge, we ask the student to learn about the 6 aspects, 6 areas of knowledge. The first one, politics and law. Law on the enterprise, law on state budgets, law on investment, for example. And the number 2 is supplementary subjects and public accounting and financial regimes. Or the next one, corporate accounting knowledge. Next one, public accounting knowledge. And the last one, the technology environment or technology tool to use when they join or when they take part in the real organization, real public organization in the society. And next one is skill part. We ask the student with 6 skills. The first one, academic foreign language, because the English is the second language is my country. The next one, use IT and solve accounting problem in organization. They can deal with the contemporary accounting issue in organization, in society. And they can connect their lesson or experience intermediate knowledge, and they also prepare the official document, legal document, official letters, and communication between the colleagues or teammates or something like that. And the last one about the autonomy and responsibility of the student can get. The first one, independent skill and teamwork skill. Next one, innovative capacity. Next one, professional ethics, responsible individually and lifelong learning. They can study more or higher level after they graduate the undergraduate of BSA training program in our university. So it's here 3 parts of PLO of the PS program in our university we set to the student to the program. And forget that the learning outcome, we set the 6 blocks knowledge of BA training, as you can see. The first one, block of general knowledge. Student learns about the politics, the language, the general management, the principle of accounting, the macroeconomics, micro or macroeconomics, for example, and the mathematics. Well, number 2, develop the basic knowledge of majors. And number 3, block of academic knowledge of majors. Majors mean the PAOs. And number 4, block of elective subjects. Number 5, practical internship or entity semester for all students. And the last one, the physical education and military trainings. They are compulsory by the Ministry of Education and Training. So 6 blocks here, they combine or they collaborate and get together to build up the knowledge of the student when they graduate of the program. And I would like to focus about the one block of them that is academic knowledge of public sector accounting. I would like to divide the 2 parts. The left side is academic subjects. We focus about the 5 areas, 5 aspects the students should learn about the PSA. The first one, public finance in Vietnam. The next one, public accounting and financial statement analysis, public auditing, public control and forensic accounting and public sector. And the last one, IPSAS for support if in the future they want to learn more about the IPSAS or VPSAS in Vietnam as well. And the next part is supplementary subject. Beside the academic knowledge, academic subject, they also required to learn some more supplementary courses for their enhancement knowledge. The first one, accounting information security. Next one, AR management, leadership, management accounting, corporate accounting is mean the financial accounting for private sector, and corporate finance and Vietnamese taxation system is support to the academic subject that the student should be learned. And regarding the personnel in charge of the PJ program, we have the 3 positions, 3 parts of the personnel. The first one, we established the division belong to the School of Accounting of our university. They in charge to control the academic knowledge to the student. The next one, we set the position of the program directors for controlling and coordinating academic as order, the order department or the personnel, and already get to collaborate and discuss with the director, for example. And the last one, we have official staff. They have professional experience. They already work in the public sector organization, and after that they become to the lecturer, and they get the real experience when they transfer the lesson to the student. It's very interesting to the student, forget the knowledge. So they are the 3 positions of the personnel in charge of PS program in our university. And when we get the education in BSA, we have some support from the professional organization. They are involved to support the material or the guidance or the keynote, the speaker. They give the real lesson, the presentation about the public sector accounting. The first one, Ministry of Finance, Department of Accounting and Auditing Regulation. The next one, some public organization in various fields in Vietnam, for example, hospital, education, transportation, taxation, customs, something like that. And 3 professional organizations, ACCA UK, CPA Australia, and also ICW in UK as well. So 3 of 5 organizations in here go together with our school to support the student and have to improve the real case in the society. I would like to mention about the study in material, because as you know that the reason we set up the program, we should be on the international direction orientation from the director. So to the common subject, we use just international book and compose learning material. To the first year student, we use the translating book from the original textbook. However, about the special distinct subject, for example, the subject related to the public sector accounting in Vietnam is very special. So we use the legal document from the official bodies in Vietnam. We wrote the Vietnamese case study for their understanding clearly about the lesson with the specific case in Vietnam. And the last one, we use the official accounting standard. And after they learn own courses required by the accounting curriculum, they finish with the thesis and internship report, and they complete. So the own department in our university will get the meeting, and they approve for their graduation and get degree awards. And the name of the awards here is Bachelor of Accounting. And in their transcript, they will show the public sector accounting major to the student. And after that, student could learn in higher level, for example, master or PhD or professional certificate, for example, CPA or ACC as well. And about the current context in Vietnam, the Ministry of Finance under the WorldBank support now has approved the roadmap, you can see here, to issue the Vietnamese public sector accounting standard. And they are in line with IPSAS in July 2019. And the roadmap is here, you can see, from the 2021 to 2024. And we have the 4-phase release and issue accounting standard. And the first part has finally and completely issued in the October of 2021 as well. And I should raise the action and response from university. The first one, coordinated to complete the training material about the PSA in Vietnam, because it's very complicated about the PSA. The next one, accompany with the Ministry of Finance to prepare the Vietnamese standards, PPSS. Number 3, comply with a legal regulation related to PS for each area. Because in Vietnam is now, we have a lot of legal documents for different area. The next one, add in one or more courses related to PPSS in the PSA curriculum in our university or other university in Vietnam. And last one, support MOF and for training GBSAS or prepare the material to official staff of public sector organization. And the last one I would like to mention is about the future expectation. First of all, I want to, in Vietnam, we should enhance the role of BS education. It's very important and should improve the awareness of the significance of public sector accounting in Vietnam. We should promote education and require the PSA certificate that issued by Ministry of Finance for all public sector official staff if they want to do or they want to work in the public sector organization. And the last one, get support from MOF or the professional organization, the professional institution or WorldBank, something like that, about the PS education in Vietnam is future. So therefore, is some point I want to share to you about the PS education in Vietnam. Thank you so much for your listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hui. And this takes us to our last session, which is the Q&A session. And my colleague, Lefaria Kinimi, he's an external term consultant from the World Bank, but for this specific Smart Interactive talk, as he was the former education manager of the Pan-African Federation of Accountants, he has a lot of inside information that it's interesting from the PAO perspective. So he will be leading the Q&A. We have only 3 minutes, but the good thing is that most of the questions were already answered online. So please, Lefaria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Without any waste of time, it's a very interesting topic, public sector accounting, where in the past used to be a sector that most of the people, most of the accountants didn't want to go and work for because of many reasons, low pay, poor working conditions. But we are glad that things have changed. Quite interestingly is that in the past few years, maybe 10 or 15 years, both countries have embarked on refining the profession and professionalizing the profession. Public sector is getting momentum to see most of young people. Public sector accounting used to be old people in age, and was always resisting change. So that's quite interesting. However, Trudy gave a very brilliant presentation on accounting technician in South Africa, and give a lot of example of the process. After interacting for a few years in Africa, and also South Africa will be one of the countries that in public sector, there's been a lot of reform taking place, and we've seen a lot of professional chartered accountants moving from private sector going to work full-time in public sector. And South Africa also got the School of National Accounting, that people want to transit from private sector, go through the school and get more skills into entering public sector. On the auditing side, there's an institution called the Southern Africa Institute of Registered Auditor, SAIGA, that have auditors that from public sector, and they've got a different criteria for qualification, how to become part of that PAO. Meant you need to have a bachelor degree and complete internship of 18 months with them and the same article, just as people do in private sector to get admission to the PAO. And we've seen a lot of young people entering public sector in that level. There are also few selected government universities who offer qualification on public sector. The other aspect that very important, maybe be a question to all the presenters on two levels. The first one, it will be on the internship. We've seen that there's not enough space for everybody that get trained from the tertiary education and public sector to get, if you are not yet employers, to get internship in public sector. Is there any possibility of considering digital simulation as a recognized way of internship that will go to Capa and Trudy? I'll stop there, and also ask the public side, is anyone got a question that would like me to answer? I'm available. Thank you.
Trudy, please.
Any one of you can start.
Thank you, Lefaria. I must say that is a challenge that has plagued us in South Africa for the longest time. A fight that we constantly have with regulators because there are really not enough jobs to allow students to gain the right amount of work experience. And if they don't get the work experience, they can't exit with the right qualification. If they don't have a qualification, they can't have work experience. So it really is a vicious cycle. What we have proposed to the regulators recently, and we're hoping it will be accepted successfully, is that we can simulate part of the internship. So even if a student can do some rotations in an employer to get some work experience, and then allow us to simulate the balance of the work experience, that will then allow us to award a full qualification with the right amount of work experience and make the graduate more employable. I hope that provides some kind of an answer. I don't know if it gives you everything you need right now.
Thank you, Trudy. Let's hear from Sumita.
Lafaria, would you mind just repeating the question again? I don't think I got the last bit of it.
Thank you. The question was on internship. We all know that there's a shortage of places for internship for students to qualify as a requirement from the PAOs. So taking into consideration the digital revolution that is taking place, is there any possibility of integrating digital simulation as part of practical that is required for the student to complete their studies?
Okay. Thanks, Lafaria, for repeating that. So as a regional body, so we don't actually get involved in that level of detail because that would be really up to the PAOs to decide, depending on whether they have the resources in place and whether they have the funding to be able to do that level of work that's needed to encourage their sort of businesses, because it will be the employers who would be working with the PAO themselves. Does that make sense? So as a regional body, we don't necessarily have a view on that.
Dr. Mianola, you want to give the take of Philippines?
Yeah. Yes. With regards to internship, I would like to mention that part of the BS Accountancy program in the Philippines is actually 4 years. Okay, and that includes 1 semester of internship, which is equivalent to 6 units. The internship that is envisioned in the BS Accountancy program is the students really will be reporting to the offices where they applied for internship, so that they can have first-hand knowledge of the transactions that are being undertaken in that office. The office that accepts internship ranges from all practice areas, government offices, public accounting offices, commerce and industry. Of course, there is no intern for teachers. Now, so that is as far as internship is concerned. That is part of the curriculum, so that when they graduate from BS Accountancy, they already have exposure with regards to the work that they are expected to do. At the moment, or as I said earlier, the student needs to be present, physically present in the company that he or she applied for internship. However, during the pandemic, most of the interns were work from home. So they were given laptops so that they can actually work at home, whatever analysis or whatever encoding things that they need to accomplish. With regards to the issue or the question on technology, aside from the internship, part of the curriculum is computer education, as well as, computer education entails basic computer skills. And then aside from that, we also have subjects in accounting softwares that will expose the students into the world of the accounting, accountancy profession. Okay, so that's it with regards to internship and digital education.
Thank you very much, Dr. Quiñonola. We have time for only one more question. We will do it from the audience. There's one question or the hand up from Lourdes Martinez. Anara or Irma, can you please promote to panelists so she can do the question? And after that, we're going to go to the closing. Thank you very much, and apologies for the delay. This is so interesting, and there's so many passion around these topics that it's hard to put it in less words than we have. Okay, perfect. Lourdes, can you hear us? No way.
Yes. And should put the hand down.
Okay. 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 Perfect. So, so in that case, we're gonna go with our colleague Dimitri Woodfinkel. He's senior financial management specialist and my partner in crime in the Pulsar events, as he's the tasking leader of the FinCop community of practice. So, Dimitri, the floor is yours for closing. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure to be here in this slightly different capacity as usual. It was indeed a very interesting session. We heard a lot of relevant country and even regional experiences that I'm sure would help to our colleagues from Pulsar and focal countries to continue strengthening their current public sector accounting capacity building programs, including the existing continuing professional development approaches. Personally, I would also like to highlight the following initiatives that have proven to be very effective in promoting public sector accounting education. First, development and implementation or adoption of public sector accounting certification or accreditation programs, similar to CPA programs adopted by private sector accountants and Philippine and South Africa experiences presented by Noe and Trudy. Some countries might need to develop their own program in case where IPSAs were implemented indirectly using national standards, such as the case of Vietnam. In other cases of countries that implemented IPSAs directly, and as Sumita mentioned, there are currently already several IPSAS certification options that could be easily adopted to countries' specific needs. Second, promote wider use of interactive e-learning tools that might help to reduce the training costs over time and make the education resources available to broader group of public sector accountants and other public financial management officials working in public sector accounting related areas. And ultimately, collaboration between public accounting organization and academia can potentially create valuable synergies, not only because of the access to young generations of accountants, but also because of the possibility of development of joint educational programs. Finally, I would like to express my pleasure about continuous collaboration between our Pulsar and Focal colleagues. I hope that someday we would be able to get all together in person, but in the meanwhile, we hope that you are able to join our upcoming Pulsar events on benefits of accrual accounting, which will take place next Monday, and it was organized by our colleague Ivona. And next Thursday, on May 26th, we have another event entitled Pathways to Accrual, Insight and Lesson Learned, which is also jointly organized by Pulsar and Focal Networks. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day, and back to you, Jose.
Thank you very much, Dimitri, and thanks to all our panelists. This has been a really, really rich event with lots of cases, and we are already preparing the next phase of this event with 3 other cases. So we hope on your participation. Thanks so much to all of our participants, and with this we formally close the event. Thank you very much. Goodbye.